Hello my friends, today I will take you through the process on how I edit portraits in Lightroom. We will not be using Photoshop, only Lightroom. And I chose this image, it's a stock image. It's a great photo, but it's definitely missing some contrast. It's missing some information over here in the sky, the highlights are a little bit blown out. Let's see what we can do to make this better. First, I would like to start with checking the white balance. I'll take this eyedropper tool for the white balance and click on the color of the shirt, which was supposed to be white. And there you go. Right off the bat, we got a lot warmer image. Now, I think this is a little bit too warm. I'm gonna dial this down a little bit. The temperature, I'm gonna drag it down from +15 to +8, and the tint from +14 to +7. So this is our before and after, just with the white balance. Now, I would like to work on the subject and background in separate ways. So to do that, I'll go to the masking tool over here and select subject. Lightroom will do its magic, which is really good these days, of selecting the subject. It's using the same kind of artificial intelligence that Photoshop uses. And now that we have the subject selected, I'm going to increase the exposure just by a little bit, maybe +15. I'm going to add some contrast, maybe +20. Reduce the highlights to -41 for this image. Maybe a little bit less, -23. I will raise the shadows to +13. I will leave the whites where they are and bring down the blacks to -8 to give it more contrast. I am not going to mess with texture or clarity. I don't want to sharpen the subject because it's a female. I want it to be more soft. So that is for that. Now back to the mask tool. I will add another select subject. But this time I want to work on the background, and the way to do that, I'll go over here to these 3 dots and invert the selection. Now we have the background selected. With the background selected, I will reduce the exposure by a bit, -70. I will add some dehaze to kind of reduce the contrast, blur a little bit the background. I'll do texture -25, maybe clarity -12. Let's see, maybe I'll reduce the exposure even more, just like that. So by reducing the contrast in the background, but increasing the contrast into the subject, we create this 3D effect where the subject really stands out. What else do I want to do? Let's see. Let's work a little bit on the subject face. I will choose a brush, go into 100%, and I want to brighten the eyes a little bit. So I'm going to carefully paint just on the eye, and I will raise the exposure a little bit. There you go. I will do another brush mask, and this time maybe paint on the teeth, and raise the exposure a little bit just to brighten the teeth. I will do one more brush, and this time I'll make the brush soft and a little bit bigger. Select the skin. You can do a better job than me. I'm just doing a really quick edit here. And once you select the skin, to soften it, we'll reduce texture to about -27. We'll go back on full screen, take a look at our image. This is the before, this is the after so far. It's looking good. Let's do a little bit of color grading. To do a color grading, we will go to the color grading over here. We'll click on the highlights. And the way I like to work with color grading, I will increase saturation all the way to 100. That way I see exactly which color am I working with. And then move the hue until I choose a color I want. I'm going to choose this kind of orangey tone, and then decrease the saturation again to maybe 20. Now we'll work with the shadows. Click on this black circle. We'll increase the saturation to 100. And I want to choose maybe a blue tone. like this for the shadows, and reduce the saturation to maybe, let's see, 26, 30, 31. So this is our before and after. Let's do a little vignette. The way I like to do the vignette, I'll use a new mask, a radial gradient, and I will draw it around the subject. Then I will go to the three dots and I'll invert it. And now I can just turn the exposure down, maybe even add a little bit of blue in it. And maybe even turn it down even more. No, that's too much. To -52, that looks better. Okay, what else can we do? Let's see if we can take care of a little bit of these dark bags under her eye. We'll go on 100%. We'll take another brush. With a small soft brush, we just paint right under the eye. And we'll increase the shadows to +40. Maybe raise the blacks a little bit. And this is this mask before and after. Before, after. We just soften things a little bit more. Let's look at the full screen. I feel like we can add a little bit more contrast in the image. We'll close this masking thing and maybe we'll add a curve. Let's create a little bit of a faded effect. So we'll lift the blacks over here just a little bit. But now everything is kind of washed out. Then I want to drop the shadows to create a little bit more contrast and bring the brights over here back. Let's see this. This is before the curves, after the curves. Before, after. Okay, the fade is not bad. I want to go back to my selection of the background, which is this mask. And I want to maybe even darken it more. Just like that. I like that better. So now let's see our image. This is the before and after. Before, after. Before, after. And this is how I would go about editing this particular image. We can even go to the calibration panel and add a little bit of saturation to the blue. And what that will do, will brighten our oranges and will increase the blues. And let's see, maybe we'll add one more radial gradient over the face and brighten it a little bit more. Increase the exposure just a little bit. Just like that. Maybe take the highlights down and bring a little bit of blacks down. Gives it a little bit more contrast in the face, draws your eyes to the face. So let's see our image now. This is before and after. Before and after. That's how I would edit this image. Let's do a different example. This time we'll do this male. You see we're missing a lot of information on the face. It was way overexposed, but let's see what we can do about it. I will go and drag the highlights down a little bit. Maybe even the exposure, take it down a little bit. I will do a gradient over the face and increase a little bit the exposure. Take the highlights down a little bit. Excuse my dogs, they're barking in the background. Let's check the white temperature. We'll take this eyedropper and just go on the shirt. Oh, and there you go, you warmed it up. Maybe a little bit too much. Instead of +18, I'll just go to +11. So this is the before and after so far. Now, let's choose the subject. We'll work separately on the subject like we did before. Select subject. With the subject selected, I am going to add some contrast to +20. I'm gonna take down the blacks a little bit, just to get a little bit more definition into his beard and hair and eyes, make it pop a little bit more. And let's see what else. I will add a little bit of sharpness because he's a male, we can do that. And then we'll go add another mask, select subject, and just like before, we'll invert it to work on the background. The background, we will darken it quite a bit, but we'll reduce the contrast and maybe even reduce the saturation a little bit. I'm also going to drag the white temperature, the white balance temperature a little bit down. Maybe not too much, to -4. So this is our picture before and after, before and after. What else can we do? Let's do a little bit of color grading in here too. And just like before, we'll choose the highlights, increase the saturation, pick a nice kind of skin golden color, reduce the saturation, go into the shadows and increase saturation, pick a nice blue, maybe more teal for this one, and decrease the saturation. So let's see, this is our before and after. Before and after. Before and after. Let's add a vignette. So we'll create another mask. We'll do a radiant gradient, make a nice big circle, and we'll go and invert it. And then we'll drag down the exposure just a little bit, just like that. And this is our before and after. Before and after. So it's a pretty big difference. We couldn't recover much of the details on the face, but overall it's looking a lot better from before to after. My name is Skylar Ewing. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.